Hello, hello, and welcome to the podcast. So I'm very lucky slash honored to be joined today by the one and only Jason Bull. Jason, thank you for making time in your very busy diary to join us today.
Absolute pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much indeed.
So most people will know you as the man from IAD. People who follow you on Strava will know you as the fittest cycler in the Southwest. Talk us through what your role is with IAD.
So the official job title is Head of Coaching and Training. And effectively, that covers a real load of disciplines. It covers everything to do with onboarding of new agents, the coaching program that they are exposed to, that they have access to, the type of ongoing training and the performance that they produce in the business, from the minute they join to, the minute they potentially say, I've grown my business to a certain point, and all I'm going to do now is be a mentor. I don't want to do any productivity. I'm just going to develop other people. And again, I'm there to help them through all of those aspects of their job.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I was chatting to Lee about this. I think this is a really good concept you guys have on board because you can't actually recruit people to join IAD until you've been to the mentorship program, which means obviously a certain amount of coaching and development yourself, sort of thing, so that you're teaching the right stuff rather than just sort of blagging it effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the things that's a real key differentiator. I think, it's if you get a really good experienced estate agent, they can sell houses all day, every day. They know what they're doing. But actually, when it comes to mentoring people, that's a whole different skill set. And it's, opening people's eyes to what the expectations are, what the best practices look like, how you can actually be a really good and effective mentor. Because, it's a title anyone can wear, but I guess, both of us have encountered people that are so-called mentors, and you get the really good people at it, and those that are the kind of that top-down, let me tell you what to do. And that's not mentoring in my book.
No, quite. If you go on LinkedIn, everyone's mentor slash leader slash investor slash millionaire slash everything else. So yeah, I think it's definitely a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it, to say the least. So with that all in mind, what do you reckon are some of the biggest challenges that estate agencies face with regard to the training and development side of things?
It's a really interesting one, that, because I think it's an attitude change. If you're someone that's actually coming in from a different career, I think you know that you've got a heck of a lot to learn. So your hunger and your attitude towards it is, I need this, bring it on. But if you've been in the industry for quite some time, I genuinely believe the EA industry in the UK has got a bit of a poor attitude towards the whole concept of training. So if you think about most elite performers, whether that be sport, music, the arts, business, people commit to having a coach and a mentor, and conducting ongoing training. Whereas in a state agency, if you've worked in the corporate world for quite some time, you go to a annual type of training event once, twice a year. So constant professional development isn't something that's synonymous in our business. And I think that's probably the challenge, getting experienced people to perhaps open their eyes to, actually there is value in this. It's not being forced upon me. It's not a punishment. Actually, it is something that is genuinely going to help me grow my business. And what we're tending to find is the agents slowly are coming around to that. They're diving into stuff. They're starting to see the difference in their business. They can see how they're actually approaching problems in a different fashion. And all of a sudden, the appetite for it just grows and grows.
So I saw a post someone put it on LinkedIn the other day, and they were like, "It seems like everyone these days wants to be an estate agent coach and a
I
mentor
saw
with
that.
bits and pieces." And I was like, "Well, actually, there's about 50,000 estate agents in the UK, and there's about 10 people in the UK who do it as a sort of a full-time job, effectively. So your odds of having actually a mentor are about one in 5,000. I'm not sure what the odds are of winning, four numbers or three numbers on the lottery are, but I'm pretty sure they're probably not a million miles off that sort of direction. So do you think that it's a mindset issue with the British as a whole? Because I'm sure, if you go to America or Australia, or you probably see this a lot with IAD over in Europe, then I'm sure coaching is probably just a synonymous and it's all part of the process.
Yeah, it is. I think that is. It's very much, it's a British type of attitude that I think we frown at a lot of things. I think, being part of a big European network, I think that has been the big surprise, that the things that are so easily adopted, and embraced in Europe, perhaps at the moment in the UK, we aren't quite there. If you look at the whole estate agency set up with brokerage models, we're a good 10, 15 years behind the rest of the world. So there's lots of changes. And when change comes along, people react to it in a different way. Some embrace it wholeheartedly, others need a little bit of convincing and they're suspicious of it. But I think we're definitely traveling in the right direction.
I remember when I first launched, I think one of the first replies to one of my DMs on LinkedIn ever got was someone saying to me, "Well, if you're so bloody good at estate agency, then why don't you become an estate agent again?" And I was like, "Well, fair play for asking, number one sort of thing." But that sort of set the tone with some of the messages I received back in those early days, sort of thing. Anyway, so I think there's certainly a natural resentment. Should we not resentment is probably the wrong word
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
a pause when it comes to training. Some people get it and they're like, yeah, great. Well, if I can earn an extra £100,000 a year and it costs me an extra, I don't know, 10 grand, pick a nice round figure, I'm 90 grand better off than I was the year before, sort of thing. I get it. Other people will go, I'm the best estate agent in London. I earn so and so, nothing, no one can teach me anything. I know it all, sort of thing. And that's fine. You know, that's your sort of neck of the woods, and that's what you think you believe, and that's your belief, sort of thing.
So I was really interested, Chris. We do a sort of like we've got an opportunity for people to actually become qualified trainers within IAD circles. Um, and we've got someone that actually was acquired in a merger and acquisition who I've known for over 30 years. And I've known him as a friend. We've been away on sort of, weekends, etc. So we've got some history. And he is a really good estate agent, excellent, markets himself well, produces good levels of business. But him and I are kind of sort of similar ages. We said, he said, his actual words to me were that he said, I think I've done everything that I can do with selling houses. It's all kind of a bit repetitive. Actually, what I know is I've got a load of knowledge, a load of skill and experience, but I just need to know how to actually wrap it up and mentor and deliver it to someone else. So actually, I want to be a trainer and I need your help to help me get there. And that's a classic example because this guy knows way more about day-to-day estate agency than I do. Effectively, I haven't been a frontline estate agent for 19 years. So, in terms of current, he's way more current than me. He's actually dealing with more sellers, more buyers, but actually he's now seeing the value of actually training, developing, actually adds another string to his bow and actually gives him almost like a shot of adrenaline to a career that he's been doing for a long time. And it almost like gives him a bit of rebirth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I was in a fairly similar position in the estate agency world. I mean, you've never been there, done that, and conquered the world with regard to sales. You never graduate from the University of Sales, as they say. But I felt like I got to the point where I was like, I've achieved what I want to achieve in the grand scheme of things. What's sort of the next challenge? And for me, I could list a house tomorrow and I would shrug my shoulders and I'd be like, yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, great. It's a listing sort of thing. No real excitement, no highs, no lows. It's just another house. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt sort of thing. When my clients list a house, I'm like, back in the net, come on. Yeah, like I'm more excited about it
Yeah,
than they are. Like when they sell a house, I'm like, yes, go on, mate. And they get a deal. I'm like, come on, you can like I am like over the moon excited when they list
I
properties.
get it.
So my vicarious excitement is 10 times more than it is when I do it myself.
It's far greater, isn't it? It really is. We've got an inexperienced agent, career changer, took a listing on the market in Kentish Town, £2.1 million. He charged 1.5 percent sole agency. And his question to me was, have I undercharged? Now, actually, if that was a really experienced estate agent, I don't think they would have charged that amount
No,
because they would
exactly.
have fitted themselves into, oh, perhaps I've got to do it for 1% or less because it's a lot of house.
Mhm.
But that to me was a real like high five moment and like, yes, you've got
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. I think that the win, personally speaking anyway, the win through other people, and it sounds like you're on the same page with it as well, is far greater than it is for doing it yourself. So that that
100%.
so when that person messaged me saying, "Well, if you're so bloody good, why don't you kind of do the estate agency side of your thing yourself?" That's pretty much exactly what I messaged back saying, "Look, I just enjoy this more. I get more of a buzz out of it, and therefore it's the next chapter of my career." And he went,
Yeah.
"Fair enough," and that
I
was
don't,
that.
because not everyone's suited to be a coach or a mentor. I think
Agree.
that what I've done over the years is you've got to have a certain streak and a certain something within you that makes it less about you and more about other people. And I think now if I look back at the younger me, I was very much a self-promoter. I
Yep.
wanted to be front and center. I wanted to be the person that was acclaimed as being the best at whatever it was that you were doing. Now, actually, I'm quite happy to sit in the background and just quietly power assist and help people. And actually, my enjoyment comes from seeing their success.
Yep. 100%. Someone asked me the other day for an event. They're like, "What do you want to be called?" And I was like, literally don't care. Like I enter the bins occasionally in the office. Like, does that mean the bin empty? Like, but if you ask me like 10 years ago, what's my title? I'd be like, I'm the senior regional director of X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. Yeah, it's all about other people these days. I'm not fussed myself.
It's
So
how you feel inside, isn't it? When you put your head on a pillow at night and you look at yourself in the mirror, how do you feel about what you're doing and how you're doing it? And that is so much more important than any title.
100% agree. 100% agree. So you're the man at IAD who is given the responsibility to take agents from where they are when they first join the business into sort of successful offices and individuals and earning lots of money and that sort of stuff. So in your experience, what do you reckon the top three things that estate agents should focus on in their business, sort of from either a cold launch or either kind of from where they are today, that can kind of give them the biggest bang for buck return on that time?
I think visibility is a hugely important one, Chris. And I think visibility comes in lots of different formats, most certainly social media, being a big part of your community, how you do that through in person, knowing the shopkeepers, knowing the schools, knowing all the things, the sports clubs, the people that are heroes in your area, the people that actually, do things like food banks, etc. Actually being a known, liked, and trusted player in your community, that to me is a really important thing that any estate agent moving forward has got to be incredibly good at. If you ignore that, I think you are massively missing a trick. Second thing, I think it's consistency. Um, I listened to a great podcast yesterday, which was on high performance, which was like with Jake Humphries, and they had Michael Johnson, the sprinter, on there. And I loved him as a sprinter. I used to watch him. He's so ungainly in his upright stance, but was just absolutely superb. But listen to him on this podcast. That is why this guy is a winner, because he was an absolute advocate of consistency. And he said in his whole athletic career, he never missed a day's training. He committed to it. And what I love that he said, and I think this applies to all of us, he said, I know where I am, and when I see small increments of improvement, that gives me incentive to carry on and doing it. And I think that same applies in the world of consistency, coaching, performance, development, actually understanding where you are and being able to measure where you've come from, and actually not expecting to actually leap from one place to the next, understanding it's gentle steps on a journey. So consistency for me is really important. If you went to the gym for 3 hours on a Tuesday and you didn't go for another month, you wouldn't get much out of it. But if you go 5 times a week for 40 minutes and you do the right things, you do get somewhere eventually.
Good.
And I think probably the final thing that I would look at is probably knowing yourself, actually having a clear understanding of what your why is. Why are you doing this? Whether or not you share it with someone else or it's something that you have got self accountability over, I think that's really important. If you've got those three things in your locker, I think your chances of success are far greater than not.
It's funny how those things change over time, not necessarily with the individual, because I think everyone's always had a reason to go self-employed or to launch their own business, all that sort of stuff. But it's funny when I was having a chat with Lee O'Brien, who was on a little while ago. He talked about when he launched his own estate agency business. It was like, first thing we did is walk up and down the high street and look for some premises. And I was
Yep.
like, God, that is aged. That is aged really badly. No one does that these days. If you think self going in an estate agency business, launching 10 years ago, if you didn't have 50 to 100 grand to kick things off in to start off with, you're out the ballpark sort of thing. So it's definitely about changing that perception about and evolving that with time. So how do you stay on top of what's important and what's relevant to your clients these days compared to what might have been relevant to their clients 10, 20, 30 years ago, for example?
I think you've got to listen, Chris. I think that is the key to it, actually listening to what it is that clients want and actually just not being this, I'm going to tell you what you need. Listen, take consensus, get feedback, remain current, things like listening to industry news. And I think that is so important. Some of it you can take with a pinch of salt, but actually keeping current with what's going on, trends, consumer behavior. And something I always do with a lot of new guys and girls is treat yourself as a straw poll of one. So, what would you want in this modern day and age? And you're probably a really good bell curve of what someone else wants and actually use that. If you've got some friends, some family, ask them, what would you want from an estate agent if you were thinking of moving home? What would be the top three most important things? What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? And I think just by doing that and being inquisitive and interested in people, that gives you all that you need to know.
Yeah, I really like that. So this is a bit of a humble brag here. I've just finished a chapter in book number 2 which may or may not be out by the time this gets released. And it's all about getting feedback from your clients. And it's not feedback with regard to phoning up and saying, oh, will you give us a 5-star review on Google and how's our service been? It's asking the hard questions like, what were the pinch points? What were the painful bits? Where do you wish we did better? What next
Yeah.
time? What was the particular part of the service where you thought it wasn't very good that we can improve? So it's kind of finding out the negative feedback. So you can take that away and go, right, these guys struggled when, because they've got a family, they struggled with tidying their property, having it all organized and getting their kids out and all that sort of stuff. Right. How can we help? How can we improve our service? So the next time we sat in front of a family, we go, we've had clients like you before, and they found that we did this, this, and this, and this, and this really improved their service for them. Does that sound good to you, sort of thing? So it's that listening communication with your clients saying, what's your problem? How can we fix it?
Do you know, that's brilliant. I saw a recent post actually. I think you put some of that content in it, and it was one of those you go, hell yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because it is just that, and it's actually being brave enough to say, look, what did we get wrong? What could we have done better? What would you like to have seen? You know, if you could wave that magic wand, what elements would you like to have seen that we didn't produce? And what that says to me is, from a customer's perspective, you genuinely are interested in what I've got to say. You're going to listen to me, and that probably is more going to make someone actually think about, actually, I'd recommend you to a friend and a neighbour, and I might do business with you again in the future. And I guess, going back to the first question we were talking about earlier, making this whole business a lot more relationship driven as opposed to transactional. And if I look at, estate agency in the UK compared to what I see in Europe, we are far more transactional in the UK than we are elsewhere in Europe. So being part of a big European network has been really eye-opening for us, because actually we can see some really good things that go on in Europe, which we can aspire to be as good as.
And do you think to do that, you need to have an understanding of where your business sits with regard to a niche in your local area? So
I think
historically,
so.
I've talked a lot about, the geography of having a niche and sort of a core patch to sort of operate in. But you also think you need to have a niche where, because I know if you're going to America, you're like, I'm the realtor for doctors, and I'm the realtor for mechanics, and I'm the realtor for dentists, and whatever it may be. So not quite that extreme. But if you are the expert in your local area of selling family homes, for example, sort of doubling down on that, or you're the expert in investment properties or first-time buyer properties or bungalows or whatever it may be. Do you think that to understand your client properly, you need to have that niche established first of all, so you know what problems you're fixing for who?
Yeah, I think it's when someone starts out, the first reaction is, I want everything. And actually, that's quite dangerous, because I think when you try to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one. So, maybe look a bit more inwardly. Who are you as an individual? What type of people do you naturally attract and work well with? Um, Potentially, is there a marketplace in your area of those individuals? If there are, lean into it, because actually your affinity with people is going to be far greater. So, we've got some fantastic female operators that have all quickly realised that actually I've got some great trades ahead at the school gates with mums like me that are working, juggling home life with domestic life, and they get a lot of challenges. If I can show them some empathy and some understanding of the challenges that they go through personal circumstances, they're naturally attracted to. We've got a couple of great examples of that. Anna Smith in Cambridge, Laura Bradley in like Basildon, Essex way, Laura Kirby in Bishop Stortford in Hertfordshire, Denise May in Coventry, Sinead Sankey in Birmingham. And they all understand and lean into that. What is their market really incredibly well? It doesn't mean to say they exclude anything else, but they focus first and foremost on the stuff that they know they really deeply understand, and they're likely to get a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one of my clients deals with purely affluent single men is their niche that they've discovered. Who knew? And I've got another one who deals with pretty much exclusively divorcee women. So there's definitely some sort of dating side hustle they've got to organize there in some way. But certainly, did they go out initially to find that niche? Probably not. But over time, they've kind of gone, actually, where am I getting traction in my business? And this is the direction I'm being pulled in. Am I happy with that? Yeah, great. Well, let's double down on it. Everything we do is based around that from now on.
What do you think people actually, if you're a member of a running club or something, or you are someone that's athletic, that you go to the gym, you're at a cycling club, whatever it is that you may do, make that your audience. Because actually within there are people that are going to have an affinity to you. They're going to feel like they understand you. You're on the kind of same wavelength. There's potentially business there to be had out of it. So it is knowing where you sit and actually really leveraging it and pulling those levers continually to make sure that you're getting some business from it.
Yeah, I used to have a client who used to exclusively get his clients from playing hockey because he would go every weekend and play hockey. Every weekend, a new team turns up of 11 people or whatever's on a hockey squad sort of thing. Anyone start chat about selling the house, I pop up, I get a new client that week. Thank you very much. So like a rotating audience coming into his business.
And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be complicated, Chris. I think sometimes actually simplicity is where some of the answers really sit. I think we try to be too sort of like complex of what we're going to do. Um, and a big part of one of the training sessions that we've taken over from continental Europe, and then just adapted it and localized it to fit, is this whole concept of sectorization, actually understanding where sectors certain properties sit and making sure you are seen as the go-to person in that area, so that no one else even gets a foothold into it. So, and again, you're looking at the French business, which is 16 years down the line. It's got a 9% share of the French market. That's definitely something that we aspire to.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, 9% of the entire country is that's a marketplace and a half. So we talk about obviously, IAD mentions a lot about technology and how it invests in technology as well. So how do you correctly, if you're in a estate agent today, how do you correctly balance between having the most shiny tech, but also having sort of the traditional stuff, let's call it, that works quite well? Where do you find the balance between those two?
For me, I think sometimes hiding behind tech is really dangerous. And that's not to say there's not a place for it, because I genuinely believe there is. For me, tech is there to take away the heavy lifting, repetitive, monotonous stuff that as individuals we will quite easily swerve and avoid for the exciting things. What should be left in its place is the personal, the interaction, the emotional stuff. Because if you think of most house sales, purchases, lets, etc., it's driven by emotion. And the minute you don't understand and you let go of that emotional connection with people, that kind of support, listening ear, that help, advice, guidance, that's where it potentially can go wrong. And if you just hide behind messaging people all the time, that misses a beat. So some things like, we did a session last week with a couple of new career changes. I'm saying, straight after evaluation, what's wrong with doing a WhatsApp video for someone? Great to see the house, love the kitchen, every bit as good as you said it was. Can't wait for the next step, and we'll be speaking again in a week's time. Pop it across to them on WhatsApp. It's personal, but it's using tech and it's getting something done nice and quickly. So it's getting that balance right of understanding that tech is there to help you, not replace what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that especially in today's day and age with AI and all that sort of stuff as well, it can really make you into a media content producing machine sort of
Yeah.
not too much hassle sort of thing, but it doesn't replace you as an individual. It just amplifies what you can do.
Well, give a classic example. We're fortunate enough that we use Rex as our CRM system. So Rex is really tailored towards a sort of like a brokerage type of model, and that's got AI woven into it really well. So things like property descriptions, you can now get AI helping you create your property descriptions for a new instruction. Put in, I've got a 3-bedroom house suitable for a family, help create a property description for it. What we'll see the back of is we are pleased to offer for sale this 3-bedroom semi-detached, which is absolutely hideous and I hate it. So what we've now got is tech and AI helping us create more customer focused property descriptions. Likewise, with social media posting, this blooming clever piece of kit actually puts 27 different variations of a social media advert together, learns which is the one that is getting the most interaction, and suggests that is the way to go for the future. So that to me is gold dust, and that is tech being used really well.
I love that. I love that a lot. So if you were looking at a homeowner today, choosing who they're going to go on the market with, what do you think the key factors are that homeowners are looking for between picking one agent and going with them, and therefore not picking another agent and not selecting that person to work with?
I think if you ask that upfront to most sellers, they're going to say price commission. That would be probably the two things. But if you scratch below that, what they want is trust, affinity, and a belief that you've got my best interests at heart and you're going to do the job that is right for me and my circumstances. That I think once you strip away that I want the best price and I want the lowest valuation, that is what customers really want. And our job is to impress upon them that this is who I am. And I think it involves asking bold questions. Things like I say, you've probably met with 3, 4, 5 different agents. Who's the one that you've liked the most? What is it that they've done that stood out for you? which aspects do you think most appeal to what you need and want from an estate agent? Who do you think is likely to get you the best result? What is it that they've done that you liked? And if you've done your job correctly, there should be an awful lot of you. Yeah, I really liked what you did. Great. Tell me a little bit more about that, 'cause I'm really keen to hear it. Just get them talking out loud about why you're the best agent for them. And almost the job is done then because subconsciously they've actually said out loud, you're the best. This is what I like about you. And actually, that's a great way of saying, brilliant. It sounds to me like we're the perfect match. Where do we go from here?
I really like that. So Richard Rawlings does a talk presentation, I suppose, all about people asking about the fee. And basically, he says that people ask what the fee is because they don't really know what else to ask you. To be honest with you, they go, right, how much
Yeah.
are you in the market for, and what's your fee? What else do I ask you then? So that's literally their go-to. The same way if I was going to buy a car, I'd be like, what's the service history? How much do you want for it? It's got four tires, isn't it? Like, what else? Yeah, it's got an engine. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Like, they don't know what else to ask. Therefore, they ask about the fee because it's that or
I don't
nothing.
think homeowners are that educated. I think, I think historically, they don't ask huge pokey questions. And if I'm going to be selling something that's worth hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of pounds, I want to ask pokey questions. I want to know what type of service you're going to give me. I want to know what type of relationship we're going to have. How's that going to work? What's the communication channels going to be like? When things go wrong, how do we deal with conflict? Because again, house buying and selling is not something that goes in a lovely smooth line. There are bumps in the road. So actually, when we hit a bump, how are we going to overcome it? How are we going to work together? What sort of communication do you want from me? Yeah, it's that type of thing. And I think, if me as a home seller, I'm probably the worst person ever to deal with because those are the questions that I'll ask of someone because actually I want a deep understanding. I don't want the just sort of flash salesmanship that you're going to give me in my front room. What I want to know is what's it really going to be like?
Yeah, we had John Savage on the podcast a little while ago, and John has written a book which is all about the questions to ask your estate agent when they come to value your property. And if you go on his TikTok, it's lots of that sort of stuff. And you go through those questions, you're like, that's a hard-hitting question. Like, that really kind of, will you sell my house for free if it doesn't achieve the figure that you think it's going to? And John states that you should not use the answer to that should be yes, I'll happily sell your house if it doesn't sell for the figure we state, sort of thing, even though you do pay and you do sign up as normal, sort of thing. But it's kind of to separate the wheat from the chaff. If someone panics at that question, they're probably overvaluing your property.
I
So
love that. I really, really love that. I did a session the other day, last week actually, with a couple of agents that are relatively new, sort of 6 months into their journey. And one of them asked a really good question. He said, what I don't understand is this house that I've currently got on the market, there's me and one other agent, and it is massively overpriced. I reckon it's £300,000 priced more than where it should be. Why has the original agent priced it at that figure? I said very easily. Employed agent is targeted for the number of instructions that they take on the market. If they don't take enough on, they will come under pressure for their job. Um, so they will actually appease a boss by taking a house on the market. And the path of least resistance is I'll value it incredibly high, I'll flatter you, I'll get your business, and I'll worry about the problem later down the line. That's the key difference between someone that's got an employed mindset and a business owner's mindset. The business owner is thinking, right, how are we going to get this sold? How can I earn the money from it, get social proof from it, and move on to the next one? Whereas a typical, and this is not sort of like corporate bashing, it's just the structure of the nature of the beast. It's very much month to month, week to week. I've got KPIs to hit to keep my boss happy. And that's what we do.
Yep. One of my clients said to me the other day, my favorite close at the moment is either I sell your house or I sell my house. And I was like, yeah, quite like that. Very to the point.
Yep.
So let's talk about fee. So many agents struggle with charging a higher fee. So if anyone's listening to this, thought themselves, yeah, I'm a 1% agent at the moment, I want to charge 1.5, or I'm a 1.5 and I want to charge 2%. What advice would you give to those estate agents who want to get that higher fee?
I think it is, first of all, actually know your value. Are you a 1% person, or actually are you by nature of what you give a 1.5% person? If you are, actually write down all the things that you believe that you do incredibly well. Um, and actually start putting a value on that. Is that worth 0.1%? Is that worth 0.2% extra? And then I think articulate it to people. How do I compare against agent X that you've just said? Okay, well, if they are not as attentive, they're not as quick to respond, they're not as communicative, I've got to be worth a little bit more. What is that amount? You tell me. We can't be the same because I'm giving you more. So how much am I worth in your eyes? And I think that to me is a great way of steadily increasing your fee upwards because what you're asking is a customer, you tell me how much I'm worth.
Mhm.
And I think most people are reasonable. Whereas if they can say, actually, yeah, you are different to X, Y, and Z, and you've done X, Y, and Z things differently, yeah, you're right. Actually, I do want to use you. Um, Again, your performance related fees potentially. So if you're someone that is frightened of actually saying I'm 1.5%, stage it. 1.5%, if I sell your home within the first 6 weeks, and I achieve a certain figure, if I don't achieve that, then my fee, you can pay me, the bog standard 1%, which is like bang average. Again, it's just being brave, Chris. Yeah, just demonstrating, finding your way. And I think each of us has got different types of ways that we're going to find works for us, that we react well to. It's just finding your own style.
So I'll tell a true story from a message I received this morning. In fact, it came through at 11 o'clock last night, but I didn't read it till this morning because I was asleep. One of my clients, I'll keep this quite broad and grey because I don't think they want me to share the exact details, have taken on a property which is in the multi-million pounds. I mean, it's more expensive than anything I've ever sold. It is a mega, mega house. And we had a meeting about it a little while ago. And I said, well, what are we going to charge? And I said, well, standard fees 2%. So we're going for 2%, then win some money up front. And they're like, oh, yeah, but it's like mega, mega cash here. Like, I'm going to go for the front door and I think I'm going to say to them that I'm going to do it for 1.5%. And they messaged me this morning saying that they had that exact same conversation and they said that they were going to normally charge 2%, but because the property is so expensive, they're going to charge 1.5%. The homeowner said, yeah, fine, I'll take you on a 1.5%. I would have paid 2%, by the way, if you'd asked me for that. And they were like, shit, that would have been to them worth tens of thousands of pounds just in that one conversation. And if they're willing to pay it at that sort of price and that sort of standard of property, Mrs. Jones can pay an extra 0.1% here or there, trust me.
It was saying this a couple of weeks ago, Chris, on a training session that we was putting on with for a couple of newbies. Actually, look for clues. Look around the car that someone's got on there, the shoes that they're wearing. If is wearing high-end stuff, there's a fair chance that actually price isn't their driver. Their driver is something different. It's status, it's reliability, it's quality. And actually, if you want those things, they come at a cost.
Yeah.
So you look for those prompts, look for those clues. Where does someone shop? If they shop at Waitrose or M&S, the chances are they're not someone that is ultra cost conscious.
Yeah.
If they were, they'd probably go to Lidl or Aldi or something that's more budget friendly. Whereas if they are naturally drawn towards other things, then that is someone that they want value, but cost in itself isn't their key driver. It's actually having your eyes open, and I think that for me, observancy is a really important skill for any estate agency to have.
No, I love that. I used to call myself the Waitrose of the property market when I used to value properties, and people would go, "Yeah, that makes sense," because I'd see the Waitrose bag or the Marks and Spencer's bag on the side, and I think this aligns with what they do and where their values are, sort of thing. So it fits in quite nicely. So I think that's a really good way to go with it. So I'd be interested in your view on my concept, if that's okay. I'll say concept sounds a bit posh. So we all know that humans fear loss more than they fear gain. So
Yep.
if you lost 100 quid out of your pocket today, you'd have to find 200 quid to feel like you're in the same position as you did before you lost the £100 to start off with. So I'm of the belief that when you have a property, and let's say you are £1,000 more expensive than the nearest agent, I'm of the belief that it is your job to find at least £2,000 worth of value in what you do to show that your value is there. Do you think that is right or wrong?
No, I'm with you on that. I think you've got to show clear daylight. Actually, here's clear daylight. This is where I'm better, and you can see it, feel it, sense it. So yeah, 100% with you on that.
Yeah, I think the thing that lots of agents need to do is actually break down the figure into how much extra they are. Because people might go, oh, they're at 1% and I'm at 1.25%. Well, let's put cards on the table here. What is 0.25% of your property? Right, well, it's £1,000. Okay, so my job is to find at least, ideally £2,000 upwards, value that I'm going to offer you more than this other estate agent. Right. Well, let's look how that's going to look. We've got this, and this is how this is going to directly affect you. So I'd never be afraid of kind of breaking that down to a monetary amount in that situation.
I like that. I think that is, again, it just shows a consultative approach. And actually, sort of, as a customer, I value what you have to say. So let's talk about it. And I think, in terms of brokering a deal, when it comes to negotiation, you want a strong negotiator actually batting for you. That's where I come into my own. And, if I'm willing to sort of like fold straight away, what am I going to do when I'm negotiating on the price of your house for you? Chances are I'm going to fold.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the best of signs going forward. That.
Is it? But you look at that and you think, for me, I want someone that's a really good, strong negotiator. I want someone that's got a sense of self-worth, that has really got my back, and I want to see physical signs of that. If I don't see signs of it, they're not for me.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So looping back to our conversation earlier with regard to Leo Bryan launching his own estate agency business 10 or so years ago, and obviously looking for a high street presence and all that sort of stuff to start off with, which sounds slightly old hat these days. Where do you see the world of estate agency advancing to over the next sort of, we'll say 5 years or so? Because I think 10 years is very hard to predict, but let's say 5 years
Yeah,
or so.
I think we'll see a much bigger swing to the self-employed brokerage type of models in all the different formats that comes in, whether it's working with an umbrella brand, whether it's working with an existing brand that's branched into something else. I think more and more you will see less bricks and mortar types of estate agents. And I think I'll probably look at it and almost look a bit like the travel industry. What you have got is one or two big players still on every high street, a couple of niche operators, and everyone else does it very, very differently. And I think for me, if you looked at the market share of self-employed independent agents, in the next 5 years, I can see that quite easily being at 20 to 25%. And where it goes from there, who knows? I could quite easily see it being 50, 60, 70% over a 10, 15-year period if it follows the trajectory of European countries, America, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, etc.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing for the industry. I think it's a far better world to be in when you are dealing with an individual, a face, a person who is directly linking to selling your property rather than just being a cog effectively or a number on a spreadsheet. So I think that's only a good way to go. So I can't say I disagree with you there in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think, if I look back at my own career path, I've got a huge amount of thanks and gratitude for Countrywide in its days, in its pomp, from the sort of like the 90s through to the early 2000s. I learned everything so much in that company. But if I look at what I was exposed to at that time, actually it feels very, very dated now. Management by fear, management by numbers. I think, this is a world where individuality, care for people, is so much more important than it ever was.
Yeah. No, Jason, you've been an amazing guest, mate. We could talk all day for this sort of stuff. I could sit back and chew the fat with you for hours on this sort of stuff. So thank you so much for being a brilliant guest on today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers, Chris.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.